Now, today marked the first day in the impeachment trial against former President Donald Trump. The House impeachment managers used Donald Trump's tweets and clips from media appearances and rallies to try and prove he planned and incited the events of January 6th. Joining us now with her reaction to today's events is Oakland Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Representative Lee, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
Now, we're watching all of this kind of unfold on television. We're seeing the House managers play video from the attacks, taking video from his Twitter, his tweets themselves. It's all very emotional and very intense for people that are, just the average American watching it. What is it like for you to watch this and essentially relive everything that took place?
Thank you very much. And let me just say, it's very difficult. I was sitting there right in front of the podium on January 6th on the floor. I was sitting with Congressman Eric Swalwell and Congresswoman Sherry Bustos, and believe me, it was harrowing. It was very scary, but we had to stay steady and we had to think through our next moves because we knew that there was a chance that we could be killed. And so to see this play over and over again reminds me not only of that day, but just how this Donald Trump over the years has really set the stage for what took place January 6th. It didn't just start during November after the election. This has been constant with him in terms of his connections and his support for white supremacists and for hostile and violent kind of language and behavior.
Would you say that January 6th was a culmination of just the 4 years that he was in office, and that kind of is just how it all manifested itself?
5 years, really, because he campaigned on a white supremacist agenda. He tried to delegitimize the first African-American president. He used very vulgar language about women and people of color. He incited white supremacists in terms of following him with his agenda. Remember Steve Bannon, remember Steve Miller, their terrible white nationalist agenda connected to, and when I was in Germany, connected to people in Europe. And so it's a very dangerous agenda that he came to the White House in. And then you look at what he did in terms of his policies, how he responded to Charleston, how he responded and things that he has said during his 4 years as president. And then after the election, what he has said to incite violence, I knew that something was going to happen. You just can't keep promoting violent behavior and not see the impact of it acting out.
Absolutely. I mean, it's essentially a boiling pot just kind of waiting to boil over, and that's unfortunately what we saw. Again, witnessing these videos, the tweets, and just, the way the former President Donald Trump kind of handled everything so casually in a way, it triggers emotion in people. What do you think about senators that, after watching videos and after hearing all of this, still push for an acquittal? What do you think about those people?
How they cannot vote to convict is beyond me. First of all, if they're that afraid of their constituents, and if they're that afraid of white supremacists, and if they're that afraid of convicting someone who thinks that he is above the law and will not uphold the Constitution, in many ways, they're quite complicit in this. And so I would hope that they would have a change of heart because they need to be on the right side of history, just in terms of preserving our democracy. And when you look at the videos, when you look at the fact that personally, any of them could have been killed, and not that they're factoring this in, but you've got to understand that it's a defining moment for our Constitution, and they should uphold the Constitution and say very clearly that no one is above the law, including the President of the United States.
It is interesting to think that, sometimes it's easy to think one way if you're not in a certain situation, but you and all of your colleagues were in the same set of shoes that day. Everyone's lives was at risk at the same level. So it is interesting to think that despite people potentially losing their lives that day, there's such a divide in the way, their belief is on how this should pan out.
Sure, and it's amazing that some are saying, let's move on. This is time to heal, without really coming up with the truth. and the facts and justice, providing justice for the American people, really, and our democracy. And so you can't move forward with a slap on the hand and just say, now let's heal. This was a coup d'etat, an attempted coup d'etat. These were white supremacists. This was an act of domestic terrorism. And how you can just say, let's move on is beyond me. This is a very fundamental inflection point, I think, in our country's history. And the senators who don't vote to convict will go down in history, I think, as being very complicit in this and turning their head the other way.
Now, Representative Lee, many of the senators and many Republicans in general believe that this has just been the Democrats' agenda since before Donald Trump took office, was to impeach him and kind of discredit everything he's done. For the record, if the president was Democrat, whoever, Donald Trump or not, if it was a Democratic president that kind of was involved in all of this the way Donald Trump was, would the actions of the Democratic Party still be the same? Would it still be as intense in the push to move forward?
Absolutely. I am confident that if the Russians interfered, if we found that our members were involved in allowing Russian interference in elections, if we learned that the high crimes and misdemeanors that this president committed, which was borne out in the first impeachment proceedings, these were facts. If we found out that our members were this close to making sure that Putin's agenda was promoted, or at least heads turned the other way, our adversaries, if we as Democrats allowed for white supremacists to conduct their behavior the way that Marjorie did, our QAnon member and other members who are trying to bring in weapons onto the floor. Are you kidding? We'd be the first to say, no way, this impeachment must proceed, because no one, and again, I have to repeat this, no one is above the law. And that's a fact. That's our Constitution requires that. And so I'm confident that Democrats would have proceeded against any of our members had we conducted ourselves in a way that Donald Trump has, in terms of inciting violence and allowing white supremacists come to the Capitol to attempt to assassinate individuals, and several people passed away as a result and died as a result of this. There's no excuse for allowing anyone to get away with that.
Absolutely. Now, I spoke to Representative Huffman yesterday. I asked him if he's confident that, the Democrats will prevail in convicting Donald Trump. He said he's not really that confident. Where are you in terms of that?
Well, I have to say our impeachment managers are doing a phenomenal job. They're laying out the facts. And so if Republicans turn their head to the facts, then they won't convict. But I'm hoping that that the Constitution, and that recognize, and they have a duty and responsibility to the Constitution and their constituents to do the right thing and convict. I'm hoping. But again, I think Congressman Huffman is right. It's a heavy lift. We've got a long way to go. But the facts are there. The video is there. The reality of what took place is there. We know people died. We know people were hunted down to kill. And how can a Republican say that did not happen, and that this Donald Trump didn't promote that and didn't incite that and didn't direct that operation? He did. And so I hope that the Republicans understand that they have got to convict. But when you look at the numbers, I would want to see every Republican vote, but we need, I believe it's 17 to convict. And we have to just keep hoping that members, their constituents, weigh in now that their constituents are seeing what happened, and insist that they uphold the Constitution and hold them accountable, because this is also about their constituents and their fear of their constituents.
Now, the Democrats are hoping to obviously hold Donald Trump accountable for what happened, and also to prevent him from being able to run again in 2024 or any future presidential election. Let's say he's not convicted, he is acquitted. His ability to run is still there. Would a censure still be on the table?
We have to decide next steps. And I think that our Judiciary Committee members will make that determination should that happen.
Okay, and if he is not, or if he is acquitted, if he's not acquitted, sorry, if he's not convicted, do you think that sends a message to our country and the world? And if so, what message do you think that is?
Well, it sends a message that democracy is still very fragile and that we have got to do more to make sure that it never happens again. And I think that Americans throughout the country have to make sure that their members of the Senate are held accountable, and the House, and elections have consequences. And if they don't convict, if they acquit this man who allowed a coup d'etat, a possible coup d'etat to occur, who allowed white supremacists to come to the Capitol and look for people to kill, and who actually were responsible for the deaths of many people and the really terrible injuries of many of the Capitol police officers. If they allow that to happen, I hope that their constituents hold them accountable.
Representative Lee, one of the senators yesterday was saying that by allowing the trial to move forward as constitutional would open floodgates. Do you think acquitting Donald Trump and essentially saying, what happened was okay, or he wasn't responsible for it, do you think that opens the floodgates of the future, violence in the future in a situation where, let's say, voters are not happy with the outcome of an election?
Well, it sets a precedent that any president can do what he or she wants, whether it's legal, whether it's criminal, whether it's against the Constitution. And so I worry that any president, Democrat or Republican, coming after Donald Trump will have a new low standard to really maintain his position, his or her position as being one of a head of state who will adhere to the Constitution. I think it's very dangerous to open that door, because this is not the way America works or should work.
Well, I think the U.S. was on the world stage on January 6th, and I think it is now, as well as today is the first official day of Donald Trump's impeachment trial.
Yes, and I go around the world monitoring elections. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. Everywhere in the world, I have been to monitor elections to ensure that they're fair and free, and that democratic transitions take place. And I worry now about our global, the perception of our global family in looking at America and democracy promotion, and how we can talk about elections being fair and free when in fact we have just really eroded any, I think, faith in what we proclaim to be about. And so we have a lot of work to do repairing this damage also.
Well, having monitored elections around the world, how would you say the U.S. compared to other countries prior to all of this? And if Trump does get acquitted, how would you say the U.S. compares to other countries at that point?
Well, we know, as a Black person, as a woman, and as a person of color, I know what the Voting Rights Act means to me and to our communities. And it took a while. It took until the 1960s to get a Voting Rights Act passed. We know that there's been a poll tax. So there have been, in America, many laws in place that prevented African Americans from voting, and many structural issues that we have to deal with still. And so we're trying to get H.R. 4 passed, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, so that we can renew the equal protection under the law for voting for people that they're trying to shut out, specifically people of color. And so it's so important that the rest of the world understand that we still have a lot of work to do in terms of our voting rights, because we only in the 60s were able to gain voting rights for people who look like me.
Yeah, especially after everything that happened, there definitely is a good amount of room for improvement when it comes to, just everything that's going on. Well, Representative Lee, as always, we really appreciate you giving us your time. We just have to, wait and see how everything unfolds, but hopefully we'll be moving in the right direction. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.